More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
5:15 is the local time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. A lot going on in baseball right now as we are in the month of May, already a month into the season. You had the Adam Jones stuff, which Bob Nightengale has been all over about, and it's despicable that there are still racist people in this country, but that is the reality. And what happened in Boston, and I don't want to generalize because I've been to many sporting events in Boston and there are a lot of awesome people, but it's scary and it feeds into that perception that Boston's had to fight for many years. And when you see a fan throw peanuts at Adam Jones and when you hear that he was called the N-word, it's just unacceptable. So I wanted to bring on Bob, and of course Bob is always plugged in with the national stuff, covering baseball for USA Today, so we will get some points in on the Mets, Yankees, and Phillies as well. So let's go out to the phone lines right now and welcome in Bob Nightengale, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Bob, great to talk to you as always, and how are you?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for coming on. So first off, you've been all over this Adam Jones incident with your article in USA Today. Just give me your reaction what occurred in Boston a few days ago.
You know, I mean, these things have been happening for a long time. Usually guys talk about it privately. They don't want publicity about it. And but in this case, Adam Jones will look back a few times to the crowd. So after the game, grabbed him and I said, "Did somebody throw something at you?" And then that's when he went on and talked about the bag of peanuts thrown, and then just how nasty it was that night with all the epithets thrown his way. And usually guys don't want to talk about it publicly; they don't want publicity about it. And I think he went the other way, obviously, saying, "You know what? This needs to be brought out in the open. Let's do it."
And we heard what CC Sabathia said, that he was called the N-word before in his career at Fenway Park. And you heard Adam Jones say to you that something has to be done about this. And he came up with the idea of hitting people where it hurts, and that's in their wallet. Is there anything the MLB can do? Because at the end of the day, if a racist fan gets into the ballpark, there's not really much they can do, in my opinion.
No, unless there's a legislature that's drafted, it's like, you know what, make it a huge penalty if someone does that, throw something, racial slur, where it really hurts, where it, like Adam Jones, not just in the pocketbook, but maybe you spend time in jail, you have a conviction, a record. I think that's the way to stop this stuff.
In your research and what you've done on this, did any fan in Boston, from people you talked to, did anyone stand up, or did you hear any stories and tell this guy, hey, cut it out, what you're doing just isn't right?
No, that's the problem. I was talking to Eric Davis about that. He said, what were other people doing? Why don't people say stuff? Yell back or at least tell security something. So that's been the problem. It's just, and I mentioned that to Adam privately, and he says, well, that's the way people are. It's just, nobody wants to make confrontation or stir things up. They'd rather just be quiet about it and not participate. So maybe now I think people will be more apt to, hopefully go ahead and tell the stadium security, get the guy or person ejected.
You're right. This isn't the first time we've seen this. Obviously, it's not the first time we've heard of this in the game of baseball, that there's a lot of racial history, of course, with the sport of baseball. But with this moving forward, do you think if more of these incidents occur not only in Boston but around with all the other teams, that more players will come forward and talk about this because what Jones did the other night opened it up to you?
I do. I think a lot of guys have kept quiet about it, and I asked them why they did. It was almost like, on TV now when some guy streaks across the field, runs across, is that, the TV cameras don't show it because they don't want to encourage other people to do it. And I think that's why a lot of guys have kept quiet. Like, we don't want to draw publicity. Then, more people are going to do it. But I think now with all the attention, all the praise that Jones got, and when you have the mayor of Boston and then the governor of Massachusetts stepping up right away, the commissioner, the union chief, Tony Clark, then I think, guys will say, you know what? If it happens to me next time, I'm going to bring it up again.
We're talking to Bob Nightengale from USA Today. We'll get to the Mets, Phillies, and Yankees in just a second. But moving on with this and, get into what happened on the field. And you saw what was going on with Boston and Baltimore last night with Manny Machado, as there's some history there, as they threw behind him. And Machado, after the game, clearly didn't like it, went on that long expletive rant that he did give last night. Just give me your thoughts on, what occurred between Boston and Baltimore last night, as this thing does have some more history, even going back further than last night.
Yeah, last night was just kind of, that was game 2 of this series, kind of going off game 1. Now in game 1, it was a 2-0 lead. Dylan Bundy pitching well. Yeah, he had 4 walks. But he drills Machado in the leg with 1 out in the 7th inning. Clearly on purpose, but because the score was tight, because Henry Ramirez was up on deck, people thought, oh, he couldn't have been doing it. Well, he did. Everybody knew it. Even the Orioles would tell you privately he did. And so the Red Sox say, you know what, we got to get even here. So Chris Hill fires that first pitch behind Machado. Now, he should have done it, lower or something like that, a little more dangerous. And so warning on both sides. So now, the commissioner, got together with the 2 managers of the Royals and Red Sox and the GMs and said, you know what, we got to put an end to this. If something happens again tonight or tomorrow, hey, we're gonna come down hard.
All right, Bob, let's move on from Boston and Baltimore, and let's talk a little bit about the Mets. I read your piece with John Smoltz and talking about Noah Syndergaard and its Mets rotation that has just been decimated with injuries. Just give the audience a little bit more detail on your conversation with John Smoltz and really what your conversation was more about for people that haven't been able to read it yet.
What John Smoltz is saying is these teams are at fault. They're bringing these guys up way too early because they don't know how to pitch. They know how to throw hard. So all they know is to throw as hard as possible, like you're in the red line in a car, and then you go up and you blow out. His thing is, hey, the Mets have all these young arms that throw hard. Of course they're going to blow out. And they got to be the ones to say, hey, you're staying in the minor leagues until you learn some secondary pitches. You learn how to pitch. You don't have to throw your every pitch 100 miles an hour. And so his point is, hey, when Syndergaard comes back in 2 or 3 months, it's going to happen again because this guy still's never learned how to pitch. He doesn't know how to be effective at 93, 94 miles an hour, and so still will throw as hard as he can. And, it's going to just keep repeating its cycle. Whether it's him or Harvey, DeGrom knows how to pitch, but maybe nobody else does in that rotation.
When I was reading your article, I know it's not the first time that he said this, but we all know how good those Braves staffs were. But even John Smoltz said that he thought the Mets, and they even had the talent to be better than what his staff was. It's crazy how quickly this thing changes. The Mets were in the World Series 2 years ago, made the postseason last year, but had to suffer a lot of injuries, and now are getting hit with that injury bug again. What do you end up think happens with this Mets rotation? Because this used to be a bright spot, and now a lot of Mets fans don't have confidence that this is going to be what they thought it would be.
I mean, who would ever think it'd miss Bartolo Colon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's steady, goes every time.
You're right.
They could use him.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah. And you need guys like that to mix up the rotation. You don't want 5 Bartolo Colons, but you could use 1 or 2 of them. And, it looks like, Washington Nationals have a chance to run away with this division. But the beauty of the National League right now is pretty down. It's like, you can probably win a wild card spot with maybe 85, 88 wins. So the Mets will be fine. Get these guys back healthy. Syndergaard, be careful. And, when he comes back in 2 or 3 months, big break for them by not trading away Jay Bruce. Bruce has been a godsend for them, kind of a savior with the way he's played. So I still think they can be all right.
I'll tell you this, and I happen to love Syndergaard. I'm a Mets fan. He's my favorite player on the Mets. But with Thor, I was very annoyed with his arrogance with this. When a team tells you to go get an MRI, you have to get that MRI, and then to, in return, go out on the mound. And I don't know how the Mets let him go out on the mound that day, but to just keep on throwing fastball after fastball, it's just petulant behavior by Noah Syndergaard, right?
Yeah, but it's up to the Mets to control that. Force them. Hey, you're not going to step on the mound again until you get an MRI. Is that simple? They're the bosses. It's not Syndergaard. They're the ones who write his check. So Syndergaard's probably more of an active bravado, and I've seen that, and it's good in a way. I remember a couple of years ago in Detroit, Miguel Cabrera was playing with a torn Gordon Wessel, and Tigers kept saying, "Hey, we want to look at it." Finally, he says, "Okay, I'll have an MRI, but you have to promise me no matter what you find, you're not going to shut me down for the year." And people love that. But in this case, when you're a pitcher, if MRI finds something, you can't just keep pitching with it.
Why do you think they let him pitch over the weekend on that Sunday?
I just think they're, old school thinking. Is that hey, he's going to tough it out. It'll be good. It'll kind of help the other guys. Say if you have some nagging little things, pitch through it. A difference between a serious injury and just a little bit of a discomfort, pain and discomfort. So I think they're really hoping that, okay, maybe he'll show how tough he is and he'll rub off on everybody else. And it completely backfired. Now, I'm sure every Mets pitcher and other young pitcher is going to say, hey, when something's wrong, I want an MRI right away, because this thing really backfired for Syndergaard.
One more on the Mets as we're talking about Nightengale before we get a few questions in on the Phillies and the Yankees. Harvey was not good last night. He has a 5.14 ERA through 6 games this season. We all know the fall of grace of one Matt Harvey, where he was an all-star game starter, then had 2 bad injuries, and he was a star, and now he's very far from his days of being a star, being the third man in the rotation and not pitching quality games. Do you see this thing turning around for Harvey, or is this just something, hey, this is the Matt Harvey now, that the old Matt Harvey is very far away from even coming close and being back 70% of the guy that he once was?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to a little bit what we were saying, is that you got to learn how to pitch. But I think this guy's capable of it. I think he knows that, you don't have to throw 96, 97, 98. You can still be a very good pitcher, very good athlete, smart guy. And I think he can do it. I mean, look at what CC Sabathia's doing. I mean, he's throwing like 10 miles an hour slower than he used to be, but he's getting results. And I think, if Harvey starts seeing that, it's like, okay, let me just learn how to be a complete pitcher now. I don't have to have that high fastball, but I can still be as effective. I mean, look what Greg Maddux did all those years.
Since you bring up the Yanks, let's get to them. They've been a really impressive surprise to start this season. We'll see how long that it's going to be able to last. And you're right, the pitching has been better than most people expected. But the most pleasant surprise for the Yankees has been Aaron Judge. Just how about this youngster? 2 home runs last night, and he was getting Barry Bonds treatment, getting intentional walked.
Yeah, just a really nice guy, too. I mean, just brought him along to the system, and always had that big imposing body, and he did it right. He didn't rush him, and guy's feet wet, and now he's really starting to mature. And sometimes it takes time. I mean, Greg Bird is struggling, and but missed a whole season last year, so it's a tough game. I'm still not sure how much I believe in the Yankees. I still think the pitching is too thin. I think these guys are young, but it's certainly a nice, bright future, because I think next year, they can actually contend for a spot. Then you hit that free agent class, and they can really be back to being the old Yankees.
And their farm system's unbelievable. We've been able to see our station, they broadcast the Trenton Thunder games, and I know he was hurt, but Gleyber Torres is going to be something special. You have Didi Gregorius, who's now back from the injury. You have the catcher also, Sanchez, coming back. They're just future, and we know you're in this weight game with prospects, but it looks like they do have the real deal when it comes to the guys that are on the farm and also the youngsters that are at the big league level right now.
Yeah, and all the Yankees have to do is look at what happened last year in the World Series, and that, what the Indians have become, and certainly what the Cubs. The Cubs hit rock bottom. They were losing 100 games and were god-awful. Houston Astros were terrible, and they get that thing. Now look at them, sitting pretty in the American League. So it works in baseball. It's almost like you got to go all the way back down to go back up again. And they were able to, they didn't have to go way back down. They could play mediocre baseball, and rebuild that farm system, and now it's just starting to pay off.
Hey, Bob, one more before we let you run, as we're talking to the great Bob Nightengale from USA Today. With the Phillies, we talk about young players. We talk about prospects as well. Franco and Joseph, they've been on the big league level before. Franco hitting 200 to start this year. Got hot at the end of April. Joseph is hitting a $192. And then you get into the farm system. J.P. Crawford in AAA, who is supposed to be this big prospect for the Phillies, is hitting a $139. Those 3 players, we all know they're still young, and 2 of them are on the big league level. How do you project their careers? Because right now, a lot of people in Philadelphia are nervous about those 3 players.
Yeah, you just don't know. It's like the Twins last year when they had Byron Buxton and Miguel Sano. They were supposed to be the best 2 prospects in all of baseball. They were complete busts. Now you look at them, Buxton still is struggling, and Sano is taking off. So sometimes just guys have different timetables. And a lot of these times, too, is like, the 3 guys you mentioned, maybe 2 will cut it, 1 guy won't. They're not all going to be stars. Everybody tries to pump up their system, but you never know. You never know what's inside a guy, too, with the heart and all that. it can turn around, from one year to the next. I mean, we're talking about what Greg Bird with the Yankees. I mean, look at the way he's struggling right now. It's just so tough with the young guys.
Hey, Bob, we appreciate the time. Always fun to talk to you during the baseball season. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.